Yes, Madam. Good morning. My name is Piedade Vaz Rebelo. I'm a teacher at Faculty of Psychology and Educational Sciences at University of Coimbra, and I'm very honored to participate in the Complex ALA Program Conference, and I thank the organization committee of the conference for the invitation, and special Professor Ilona Teglasi for this invitation. And I hope to continue strengthen the collaboration between the Esterhazy Caroy and the University of Coimbra. So the topic of this presentation will be early school living in Portugal, and the structure of the presentation will be this one. I will present the university. After there will be developed an analysis of early school living, and finally some policies and practice that have been developed in Portugal to tackle early school living. About Coimbra. Coimbra is a city situated in the center of Portugal. It is situated in a hill. In the top there is the university. Coimbra was the first capital of Portugal, and the university has its history very related with the history of the Portuguese nation and the history of Coimbra. The university was founded in 1290 by King Dinis, and is considered one of the oldest of Europe and is the oldest in Portugal. Here you can find some photos of the old university above, the courtyard, the tower, the main gate, also some photos of the river, the Mondego, and the main street already in near the new buildings that were built during the decade of 15 of the 20th century. Here are some photos of the old university. Sorry, I think, okay, I apologize. So the chapel, the main room, that is also called the King Room, because the university, before being the university, was the palace of the king. And below the library Joanina, that was built later in the 18th century, but is considered the ex libris of the university. Sorry. Okay. So I think I skip some slides, but at the moment the university have. So I think you can see there the three campus, the three modern campus now that there are actually, and here the 8 faculties of the university. The oldest is the Faculty of Letters, but the most known in Portugal is the Faculty of Law, and also in speaking country Portuguese is very known, the Faculty of Law. One of the youngest faculties is Faculty of Psychology and Educational Sciences. The University of Coimbra has about 25,000 students, and there are many academic traditions. Here you can see the students singing the Fado, is the traditional song, and also the academic festivity that usually take place in May. Now some photos of the Faculty of Psychology and Educational Sciences that has 3 buildings at the moment. The main building is also in the hill of the city. It's a building from the 16th century, and the faculty has courses and grades in several areas as psychology, educational sciences, social work, and from my side I've been involved in bachelor, master and PhD courses in educational sciences, as well as in pre-service and in-service teacher education. Now about early school living. What is, how to tackle it, why is important to analyze this topic. How, what is the definition? How this concept has been defined? There are more than one definition, but according to the European Commission, early school living refers to the 18 to 24 years old young that are not anymore in education or training. Of course, we can define it differently, but nowadays this is the official definition, but of course it is very related with other concepts as dropout, retention, student in risk, academic failure. There are concepts that are quite related with early school living. Why is important to think about the young people that are considered young school leavers? Because there is evidence that these young people usually have difficulty in finding a job and in maintaining the job. So this target group are a target group of young people that are in risk of unemployment and in risk of social exclusion and poverty. How many? According to the European Union, there are about 4 million young people that can be considered young school leavers. And this is why the European Commission, in the strategic framework for European cooperation in education and training, consider as a priority to tackle early school living and establish this benchmark that should be achieved by 2020, that early school leavers from education and training should be not more than 10% in all the 28 European countries. And the other priority that is also in this slide that was established is that at least 40% between people age 30 and 34 should have some kind of degree in higher education. Returning to early school living, what are the numbers? According to Eurostat, you can see the numbers in 2017, and in average, there are 10.6 young school leavers. But we can also see that there are differences between countries. So there are, and these differences range from a minimum in Croatia, that is about 3%, to a high level in Malta, about 18%. What about Portugal? What are the numbers in Portugal? If we return back to this graphic and to this data, we can see that in 2017, Portugal was not doing very bad. It has a rate of about 12% of early school leavers. But if we came back to earlier times, we can see that in 2012, not far away, we had more than 20% early school leavers. And if we turn back again to 2009, young school leavers were more than 30. And even more, if we come to 1992, it's not such a long time ago, we have almost 50% of early school leavers. This means that half of Portuguese young people between 18 and 24 were anymore in education or training. Here another slide, you can see the same data, but with the difference between gender, between males and females. and the results for Portugal follow the general results. Usually males have higher rates of early school leavers than females. And now, coming back to the general situation of early school leaving, we can ask why? Why does it happen? Why does it occur? Research points that this is a complex situation that has not only one factor associated and can be a mix of personal, social, economic and academic factors. But according also to the research, the most important factors for the situation of early school leaving are the socio-economic disadvantage and the academic factors, namely underachievement or negative experiences at school. And if we go deeper to the school-related factors, which are the school-related factors that have been identified? Here are some of these factors. You can see that there are risk factors as grade retention, socioeconomic segregation of schools, early tracking, and there are also protective factors as high-quality early childhood education and care, or well-designed primary and secondary education. And now we can see that the school has a very important role in tackling early school leaving, but it seems that the all-school approach is needed to achieve this in a successful way. And coming back to the Portuguese educational system, what was done, what is going on now, we can sometimes, when we analyze the data about early school leaving and grade retention and dropout from school and illiteracy also as well, we are a bit upset with the negative data that we had in the past, in a recent past, and sometimes there are some historians that made a provocative question. They ask, had the Portuguese system started in reverse? And why this question? This question because we had a very antiquated higher education. It started, as we saw, with the University of Coimbra in the 13th century, but we have to wait until the second half of the 19th century to have a compulsory and free primary education. So the Portuguese educational system was very concerned with training the elites, the higher education, and not so concerned with training and educating the whole population. And this, in a certain way, explains that we arrive at 20th century, 1910, when the Portuguese Republic was established, and more than 80% of our population did not know write and read, and this was really a very high rate. Then several reforms start. In the First Republic, education was a priority, and primary education of 6 years were established, and there was a strong investment in education, but unfortunately the Second Republic came in 1926, and the opposite situation happened. The compulsory and free education was reduced, and there were a strong disinvestment in education. And we came at the Third Republic in 1974 with higher rates of illiteracy and retention and dropout, and with a lot of school problems. But since then, in the Third Republic, that we are still there actually, several educational reforms took place in different areas as curriculum, school organization, teacher career. Several reforms have been taken place. As a curiosity, a recent text of the National Council of Education states that since 2006 at least 40 changes occurred in course programs, curriculum goals, student evaluation. So a lot of changes have always been taking place, but we can say that they all have the same goal. They aim to promote academic success and to prevent early school leaving. And now, remembering these risk factors and protective factors of early school leaving, what has been done in Portugal about these factors? About early school education, there has been, it's still going on, a strong investment in this area. You can see there the numbers. We had low rates of attendance of early school education. This has a great evolution, but we came at 2012 and we were still below the European Union, the average countries of the European Union. But now, in 2017 and nowadays, we are aiming to achieve 100% of attendance at least for children of 5 years old. Another measure was to extend the compulsory education. In 1986, it was established that compulsory education should be 9 years, and since 2009, compulsory education lengths 12 years. Another issue that has been received a lot of concern is how to balance between the common education and the diversification of the offer in the basic and compulsory education. We know from research that early tracking is a risk factor, and the diversification of the courses is a protective factor. So how to balance this? Here, the structure of the Portuguese educational system. In the red line, you can see the compulsory education, and in the first moment, there was only one branch, and this was similar for all. But this was also associated with higher rates of dropout and retention. So what happens are the lines below. This means that these offers start to be diversified. For instance, in the basic education that involves primary, second cycle and lower secondary education, there are now specialized courses of arts, of music and dance, and there are also other pathways. These pathways are those here indicated that are the two of them, the two first, are temporary and special measures for students who are in risk of failing or are already failing. And so they can be conduced to these pathways, but as a special measure and always temporary. After the situation is solved, these students shall come back to their own class and to the general path. These are called the alternative curricular pathways and the integrated education and training programs. There are also these education and training courses. These are courses that are offered to people that already left the system, and so with these courses they came back to school and in a certain way finished their education where they stopped in the past. In upper secondary education, the situation is even more diversified. So there are the scientific humanistic course. This is the more traditional branch to access higher education, but there are also other possibilities as the specialized artistic courses, the professional courses, the specific programs, the education and training programs. So different possibilities of doing upper secondary education, but a concern is that the permeability between these two paths is always guaranteed. This is a high concern of the educational reforms. Since 2005-2006, another courses were created. These courses are post-secondary professional qualifications and allow also the students who don't want to continue in higher education to have more qualifications and training. Of course, this is a very general pictures. I also put here some polemic questions that are being discussed and rediscussed. One of them is at which time this differentiation shall begin? At 13, at 10, at 15. We already had different solutions. Our former Minister of Education established 13 years old. Now it's not anymore. Only at 15 students can start a more vocational course. And another polemic question that is a lot of debate going on is at which shall the students that choose different paths in upper secondary education have the same access to higher education than their colleagues that do the humanistic and scientific courses? A lot of debate and discussion around this topic. Coming back to the risk factors and protective factors and about the curriculum and the well-designed curriculum in primary and secondary education, this is a key issue as there is evidence that early school leaving is a long process of disengagement from school, and usually it doesn't start when it appears in an explicit way, but it starts as early as primary education. Usually the problem starts there, and frequently when the child experiences the first school failure. So it's very important to design curriculums that are relevant, that engage students, that support students in their needs and their difficulties, and that are flexible, that can adapt to the needs of the society, but to the needs of the child and student. In Portugal, we are going now with a new reform that started last year. Perhaps it's not so new as in 2000 we have similar proposals, but now there's again we are starting to make some improvements in our curriculum and educational system, and the key document is this one. It's called the Exit Profile of Students Leaving Compulsory Education. And this document has received a lot of discussion and participation, as if you go through the documents of this reform, you will find some keywords. And I try to highlight some of these keywords. And you can see that teacher involvement is a keyword. So teachers sometimes do not participate very much in the curricular reforms, and this time they were challenged to participate. A survey was sent to teachers so they could say what they thought about the curriculum should be, what were the main problems. And one of the issues that teachers said were that the curriculums were too long. And so another key issue of this new reform is this essential learning. So there's an effort to establish the essential learning that students should have at the end of the compulsory education. Another key word is student involvement. There's a big effort also for involving students in the curriculum. So there's assemblies going on where students can express what they think about school, what they would like school to be, the curriculum to be. So this is also a key word of this new reform, as well as this citizenship education. Other keywords: curricular flexibility. Teachers and schools are challenged to have the national curriculum, but after to develop a school curriculum project and class curriculum projects. And this is a keyword in this new reform. And to promote this, it is established that until 25% of the national curriculum can be developed by each school in its own way. So in order to promote this autonomy and this flexibility of the curriculum. And also teachers and schools are challenged to implement interdisciplinary. So teachers of the same class, teachers from different subject areas should cooperate in order to develop projects, interdisciplinary projects that can create these areas, disciplinary areas that are a combination of different subjects. And of course, to do this, teachers must collaborate, so collaboration is another keyword of this reform. And, other keywords are the differentiation measures, the inclusive school. There's a specific curriculum for the inclusion. This is also a big concern of our Portuguese educational system, and also how to support students, how to really support students. Now the tutors are emerging as a new figure. Teachers that can be tutors and so follow students in a more personalized way. This all aims to tackle the risk factor of grade retention, because as research points, there's a strong association between grade retention and early school leaving. And even the European Commission points that some countries where there are higher rates of retention, these are the countries that also have higher rates of early school leaving. For instance, Portugal and Spain. So the key word is to, and the recommendation is to reduce retention. This should be an exceptional measure, and retention should be replaced by until failure measures. And now a final word to school organization. That is also a factor that can be protective of a risk factor, depending how it is dealt. What is happening in Portugal? We have a very centralized system concerning school organization, but also there's strong recommendations to promote autonomy and to foster school autonomy. Since 1995, we have a decree law that tried to encourage schools to establish their autonomy projects, but this has been a slow process. And schools can promote having their national curriculum. If they are public schools, they shall follow the national curriculum. But after, schools can define a school project and class projects. And schools can even sign with the Minister of Education autonomy contracts if they feel that they are prepared to run the curriculum in their own way. Another interesting point of the school organization in Portugal is this one. Due to several reasons, we have the economic crisis. We have also a decrease in birth rate. So there are schools where children and students are just a very few. There was the need to reorganize schools and to develop these clusters or network of schools. And these school clusters are organizational units that involve different levels of education, from pre-primary to upper secondary education, that all are around the same educational project. And this allows to manage a lot of issues that we hope will conduct to academic success. These school clusters have been considered by the OECD a good practice in Portugal. And there's a video that perhaps later you can see that explains and even shows schools that are function in this way, and that explains how the process started, what were the difficulties to implement this practice, but at the end how teachers, students, parents, all the community are happy with the solution. And now a final word to an example of a school in Portugal. It's called Escola da Ponte, School Bridge, and it was the school that it was the first school to sign a contract of autonomy with the Minister of Education. It is a school in the north of Portugal, a school that had a lot of problems. It was in a socio-economic disadvantaged area. They had high rates of school retention, school dropout. Teachers were demotivated, parents did not come to school, so the situation was not very favorable. And the director, that is here, José Pacheco, decide to start to think school in another way. How would it be possible to think school in another way in order to tackle all the challenges they were facing? And so they developed slowly, because this lasts for a lot of years. It was not done in any year. It was along the time. They start to develop a project that aimed to center the education in these keywords: autonomy, responsibility, freedom to choose, solidarity, and aimed to be the student at the center of the process. For instance, if you visit the school, you will see that the school will be presented by the children themselves. You will not talk to teachers, but with the children themselves. And visitants have their rights, their duties. This will be explained by the children. And after, there are no classes, but traditional classes with a specific teacher, but there are open spaces where the children work in autonomy. Here you can see another open space where there are small groups or students working by their own. And you can see that there are teachers around, but they are not giving the class as was usually in the schools. Another issue is that curriculum is in the halls, is around the halls in school. So it's a public school. The school shall follow the national curriculum, and teachers decided to work the curriculum and to put all the national curriculum in the halls. And what happens? Each child decides what he or she wants to analyze in the curriculum. Of course, at the end there will be the national exam, so they must go through all the curriculum. But the curriculum is on the halls. Each child every day, not every day, every 15 days, makes a work plan with help of a tutor, and after he follows this plan. And when the plan is completed, the child, he or she, start a new plan. And like that, one of times I visit school, one of teachers show me a place where there are all the dossier, the portfolios of the students, and they are all different because students can decide in different way how to manage the curriculum. Of course, they can be supervised by teacher, and teacher can tell perhaps it would be better to start by this part, but final word and final decision is of the child. Here, one child with his tutor, the child working in autonomy. The resources are also around the school. And here another pedagogical resources that are also on the halls of the schools. There are some more related with the knowledge and others with the citizenship. For helping students to manage the curriculum, they have these sheets with I already know, I need to improve. And so each child, as far as he considers that he already managed some subjects, he can go there and put his name and their competence. And if a child thinks that he needs help in some subject, he can do the same thing. And like that, a network is created between all the children and all the students, and they can support each other. They also have the I agree, I don't agree. These more related to aspects of the school functioning, and they can express themselves is there. These are other examples. Here a child presenting their ideas there in the hall, and after, here they can discuss the I agree and I don't agree in the assembly. The assembly occurs every Friday afternoon, and there all the students participated, and they can discuss the issues that are going on in the I agree and I don't agree. And it's aimed that all students participated in this assembly. So here more examples, and thank you very much for your attention.